Right, so welcome to the Microsoft Ignite wrap up. We have Loryan and myself. What was this picture about, Loryan?
Well, this was a picture we took for our workplace etiquette slide at the Microsoft Ignite conference. So this was us. Hang on, I'll give everybody a lovely video of me. This was us actually talking about what went wrong in a conversation, like how the tools of Office 365 could have actually helped us from coming to blows with each other. So yeah, that's what this particular slide is about. I thought I may as well use it. It's a good one for you and I to use for introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's got lots of emotion and power in it.
So kicking along, so the agenda, what we're going to be covering, as noted, is this is a very heavy Office 365 centric session. We will be talking about a few other things. Sorry, I had to mute my other device there. So we're going to be covering off Office 365 in general, obviously SharePoint, OneDrive, Skype and Teams, because that's been quite a point of contention and mystery and wonder and FUD. Obviously YAML, where it fits into Office 365 reporting, is that so important when it comes to adoption and change management and how well you're actually using it, as well as some other apps and services that exist within Office 365. So handing over to Darrell.
Oh yes, no, I love this. This is one of our big themes throughout the Office 365 messaging at the conference. Was all about loops. Now, I just want to take a bit of time explaining this. So we know Office 365. We recognize some of these icons and the services. So we know what Office 365 is made up of. And when you are using various pieces of Office 365, we have now got 4 C's to explain how we're using it. We can create content. We're used to co-authoring, etc. We're note-taking. We communicate with each other. So, of course, there's email and calendar, etc., video and voice like we're doing now. We coordinate with meetings. We have got various different projects and tasks and ways of doing this. So that's the likes of Planner and those sorts of services. And one that I hadn't really thought of much before, which was Connect. Of course, it's connecting on communities, community sites, big, massive company meetups. You might be using Skype broadcast for that sort of thing, Yammer and discussion groups. So when we think of loops, and of course, these are all powered by groups, Microsoft Graph and security and compliance. But when we think of groups and how we collaborate, how we communicate, we have an inner loop, people that we talk with and work with day by day on projects, teams, departments, business units, etc. And then we think of the outer loop. There is a slight delay as I click, but here's our outer loop, which is communicating with people across the organization. People we might not talk with day by day, but we want their input and we want to hear from them and discuss things with them. Inner and outer loop. So keep those in mind as we work through the rest of the presentation.
So thinking about Office 365 in general, one of the things that that we saw actually happening at Ignite is the reference to Microsoft 365. So this was announced at the Microsoft, what was called the Worldwide Partner Conference back in July, was they unveiled Microsoft 365, which is effectively a bundling. It used to be called Secure Productive Enterprise, but now it's called Microsoft 365. And in a nutshell, it's the bundling of Office 365, Windows 10, and Enterprise Mobility plus Security. But so the reason why I wanted to call attention to this is because if you look at this slide, you notice that everything on the slide is actually Office 365, but we saw it as it's Microsoft 365. So what I suspect is actually happening is that we'll see the 365 part of the Office 365 drop off, and it will simply just be Office, much like we have Windows, and that Office will be part of the Microsoft 365 story. So that's just not official. That's just something we suspect will be coming, and something we wanted to call out. So if you see it, you won't get too confused. So Office 365 groups, they kind of exist and connect to everything inside of Office 365. What we saw is the rollout of a number of key features that people wanted, such as expiry policy and naming policy. So the ability to actually control how your groups are named and when they actually move off and shuffle off this mortal coil, because maybe they don't need to be there in perpetuity, as well as how we provide classifications. So some of those classifications now will show up in Teams. So if you've seen in Teams in the top right corner, you've got a Teams attached to obviously an Office 365 group. You can actually see in the top right corner, it might say no classification or internal or external, whatever it might be. And that's actually coming from Office 365 groups. So there's a lot more functionality coming to Office 365 groups over time, so we're going to have better integration with Yammer. It's there now, but it's not exactly that fantastic. They are connected to each other, but we'll actually see them really being one and the same. We'll actually have better guest controls. We'll also have multi-geography, which we'll be talking about a little bit through this presentation. And obviously more connection with Teams. So obviously Teams sits on top of groups, as I mentioned, but we'll actually have more controls and getting more of the advantage of groups flowing through to Teams. Another thing that was also talked about, which Darrell will talk about through shortly, is the groupification. We can almost refer to it as the great groupification of 2018, where existing SharePoint sites will be able to be connected to Office 365 groups. So that's been quite a challenge previously, and I'll let Darrell talk a little bit more about that. So as I mentioned, the multi-geography capabilities. So this is where organizations that are multinational can have their data residing in different countries for network benefits in terms of speed, as well as data residency benefits. So historically, what this meant is that an organization had to choose based on its billing location where its data was stored. So if we're an Australian organization, and we are being billed to an Australian head office in Sydney, then that meant our data center also had to look at, also had to live in the Australian data center. So this was a bit of a challenge. If, for example, we had 9,000 staff, of which only 2,000 were in Australia, and 2,000 were in APAC, and the remaining 5,000 were in the US. So that meant that our US users were second-class citizens in terms of performance. So what multi-geography capabilities means is that I can say those 5,000 people, they actually sit in the US data center. So the data is more local and it's faster for them. So right now it's been in preview for Exchange Online. It's been there for a little bit with some private preview, and now it's expanding out a little bit. And what we're seeing, well, apparently by the end of 2017, is the preview will come for SharePoint Online as well. So if anybody remembers back to BPOS days, we had a URL that was things like apac.sharepointonline.com. We'll probably see something like that as well now, where it will be australia.darrellandloryan.sharepoint.com, something like that. So Darrell, take us away with SharePoint OneDrive.
Yeah, I'll take the first chunk of this. Spilling on over to the first announcement, we're firstly looking at the next slide, buddy, because you're driving. Sharing and working together with OneDrive. Now, we probably should by now be very familiar with the news around files on demand and the capabilities there with OneDrive. If you have managed to get the full creators update on your machine, then you would be staring at it now and enjoying the benefits. One thing that I like about this is it's not just about OneDrive and synchronizing files on demand for your personal files, but also for document libraries as well. We have seen also that there's some options to bring those files down as we need them. Double click and it feels very much like you're copying content between Windows Explorer. But if you don't use that file after a while, we have heard that there's some heuristics or some fancy word to describe when that file will return to the cloud if it's not in use. So nice to see that. Previews of files, there's some big capabilities there for the likes of the medical professions, the building and architecture that you can have these different types of files that are stored within SharePoint and viewable, and even to the point of having 3D models. Dare I say that these large files will take a while to get up there on some of our bandwidths. I also, just before I go further along from there, is the being able to share files externally without the need for a Microsoft account. So this is a welcome thing. We've seen in other examples in the past where it's not always preferable or easy to sign up for that Microsoft account. Now you can just share a link that is a unique and timed bomb kind of link. So very cool there. Next slide, please. All right, so yeah, Office apps, we are seeing the sharing experience uniform across all the different applications. So even across Mac, Windows, even into mobile. The terms, of course, of sharing with anyone, sharing within your organization, they're all far easier to understand. So we are seeing that already. This one that I've highlighted is an interesting one to me, that when we're working within Office Online, of course we know about co-authoring, we can see the activities going on, but what does this @mentions thing mean? Are we going to be able to @mention people within our documents? And what does that look like from a conversation experience? Far better performance there too for Office web apps. It'll be a lot faster. The next slide. And from a team site perspective, this is what we were talking about a little earlier, being able to groupify team sites. So just step back, think about those existing team sites and how we might want to add additional capabilities to them, from being able to allow those same people that work on that team site to use Planner, to start to communicate together using a shared inbox. I think that at the moment this groupification prefers the Outlook experience, but we'll probably have that clarified later. Being able to add forms on pages as well. So it's not just a site that you have to go off separately, but you can embed that into the page. And then finally there, you've got the capability to have the SharePoint page or site as a tab in your Microsoft Teams. So it's a first-class experience rather than this embedded web page experience that we've had up until this point. So very much about bringing that content together. Do you want to take this one, Loryan?
Yeah, sure. So with communication sites, so that's been a relatively recent feature of SharePoint Online. So it's been great for kind of publishing content to the rest of your organization, as opposed to giving them access to your internal group site. So what we're going to be seeing is in group sites, more layouts, more web parts and options for designing. We're also going to be able to bring Yammer in as a native web part, which will be a better way to then bring those conversations in as well. So a more connected experience. So one of the terms that I'm using quite a lot from Ignite is convergence, where we're seeing a lot of these technologies that have blossomed and kind of grown out separately within Office 365 are really now starting to come together and to converge. So SharePoint hub sites. This has been quite the bane of the existence of people who have what we'll call SharePoint Classic architecture versus SharePoint Online architecture. So SharePoint has been around since about 2001, and that's actually about how long I've been using it. And what we had back then was you had a site collection, then sites, then subsites, then subsites and subsites, and you had this this hierarchy of SharePoint sites that generally matched your organizational structure, which became quite a problem when your organizational structure changed and the team moved from one department to another. So what you would have to do was then migrate that team to that other one, and then all of a sudden the URLs break because it's now sitting in a different site or site collection. So the guidance now is no more subsites. We have hubs. So groups will actually connect in under hubs. Just to add more terms into your vernacular, not staff hubs, SharePoint hubs. And so hub sites will be their own Office 365 groups, which then can have groups sitting underneath them. So one of the challenges people have had with groups is they wanted nested groups. This gives you that ability to then roll up content and surface content from your group into that hub site. So ultimately, I think this is a greater structure for SharePoint, because it means we're not tied to this architecture that was defined potentially 10 years ago, as we see with a lot of SharePoint environments. It's actually something a bit more fluid, because what will actually happen with it is while you can attach to this hub, when you have that reorganization, you just go, oh, okay, click, and rejoin to a different hub, and your URL stays the same because it's its own site collection. So that's something quite exciting to see. There was a lot of cheering when that was announced.
All that look and feel comes down to those connected sites too. And in the other direction, if you start getting into using news articles and the like, all that content is aggregated up to the hub, which is really awesome. Transforming business. Yep. So there are a number of different processes that we have begun to see appear. The interaction of forms and of flow and of Power Apps with the content in lists and libraries. And so there is going to be the document approval and feedback flow that appears back. So what we used to have with the old workflows is going to be brought in using Flow. There'll be the capability to bring those Power Apps into the SharePoint experience too. So that's far easier to interact with directly from the SharePoint page rather than going out to the individual app, which of course makes sense to use as well out there too. I did mention earlier that you can embed those forms on a page, so this is quite good when you've got let's say a communication site and you're wanting to get some news across, but you're also wanting to get some feedback, and it's not just about having those conversations on the page with something like embedded Yammer in a web part, but also let's get some quantifiable data, so dropping that form onto the page. Now that one that I guess was a little understated, but again some more cheers, was those large lists and libraries where we've been limited to a certain number of thousands of items that display in a view. There's now, I think what Daniel called it, the bump and no, I won't. some way, like the endless scroll, where you scroll, it gets to the bottom and it loads a whole lot of the additional items within that view. Now that doesn't excuse you from using views. You really should use them if you want to make the content in a list or library visible and usable. So don't discount that. But it's awesome to see that if you really wanted to display all those millions of items and scroll for ages, then you can. Next slide. Yeah, and so Bing and LinkedIn and a few announcements around that. When it was announced and displayed in the keynote, it was quite interesting. They started off by showing this Bing looking page, and then it was all of a sudden called Bing for Business. So much like we've seen something similar with Google, where you can search within your organization from an internal Google site, you now can have your own Bing for Business page, and it doesn't just bring in publicly Bing available results, but results across your organization. So being able to search the content that's in your SharePoint sites, find in those profiles, and this is where it also ties in with LinkedIn profiles as well. Now, in the early stages, LinkedIn content is going to be available on the contact cards and within search, but at the moment it is just your education history and your employment history. So I guess they're still working out the other capabilities that they can bring through there. Finally, when you do click into any old search box across your search experiences throughout Office 365, you don't even have to type anything. Using the Microsoft Graph, it's going to bring in the most current content, the documents you've been working on recently, the people you've been communicating with. That's, boom, there's your personalized search right there from wherever you are. Next slide. Protect and manage. We've seen that theme of multi-geo support, so this also extends to SharePoint. Your content will be available and can be extended into the country that you're in. We have a new SharePoint Admin Center. I think we have a slide for that a bit later that goes in more detail. But one of the great things that's being displayed here too is end users being able to control restoring their own OneDrive. OneDrive being that sometimes people have that experience of deleting a document, deleting something, or even, hopefully we don't see this too much, but when people open up something and a file gets locked or infected or encrypted, they can roll that back to the previous day and continue with their files. Service level encryption is another one that people are quite concerned about. If they really want to make sure that no one can get in there, they've got their own key. next slide, and we'll pass this over back to Loryan.
Okay, so look, there actually, what we've got here is a number of roadmap slides that ideally you'll consume after this. We're not going to take you through them all line by line, and we actually have covered a little bit of them. But what we've effectively done is combine the roadmap slides from a number of Office 365 groups and SharePoint and OneDrive sessions. So there's one. There's another one for team sites, not teams, for team sites in SharePoint. There's one for communication sites in SharePoint, and there's one for SharePoint in general. So yeah, feel free to peruse. We'll make this available, both the recording and the slide deck afterwards. So Skype and Teams. Now, actually, I'll go back so you're not distracted. You can look at my beautiful face while I talk. Now, with Skype and Teams, there wasn't actually any really roadmap announced at Ignite. However, there was one last week that I wonderfully got up at 2 a.m. for the MVP call. So what we've done is incorporated in, so it's as if it was presented at Ignite. What they did talk about, the main topic of conversation around Teams was really kind of exposing the inner workings of how Teams works and what they're working on, and Darrell and I covered and delivered a number of those related sessions. But they really kind of cleared through the FUD around and if you don't know what that means, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, not anything negative. They cleared the FUD around the Skype and Teams integration and replacement that people had seen due to the screenshots that were leaked to the press a few weeks before Ignite. So in a nutshell, as you'll see through these next few slides, effectively what's happening is all of the functionality in Skype for Business is coming to Teams, Skype for Business Online. Excuse me, we'll cover the server version a bit later. But as you can see there's more capabilities coming to Teams. So there's basically all these slides have what's available today, what's coming in Q1 of 2018 calendar year. Now these are indicative. They're not to say that things won't come sooner or that things might not slip a little bit later. It's just indicative, but as you can see, more interoperability. The thing that I'm particularly looking most forward to is the federation between Teams and Skype for Business and the contact import. So what this will mean is if you're a organization that's only using Skype for Business online, then you'll actually be able to move potentially completely to Teams, or have a great mix and match and let people pick and choose when they want to move over to Teams. There are some great security and compliance components built into Teams now, but there'll actually be some more built into around that, around retention of messages, so that people, while we can have the opportunity to delete messages, it actually still won't get deleted. So that's one of the toggles that you can flick inside of Teams now, is give people the ability to delete their own message. So you can have that on, but it will still be retained in the back end. From a meetings perspective, so the meetings capability inside of Teams is, if you've used it so far, it's somewhat limited. It's quite basic in terms of capabilities. But as we'll see, there's some things coming by the end of this calendar year, estimated, and then some things that will happen by the end, by mid-2018 calendar year. One of the things that is available in preview now is the audio conferencing. So if you've got what's called PSTN conferencing in Skype for Business Online, then what you'd notice is when you go to do a Teams meeting invite from within Outlook, it will actually bring across those PSTN conferencing details. So people can actually dial into a Teams meeting by phone using just the old school phone number method. But that will be expanded out to more countries. Right now, we've got it here in Australia. So if you've got it, you can use it. Anonymous join is something that obviously we can have with something like this, Skype meeting broadcast. So nobody can see you clapping, Darrell, it's just my video. So that will be introduced, as well as things like lobby. So basically the things that you're used to with the Skype meeting will be coming across. Also things like this, we're using Skype meeting broadcast. As you can see, coming in the first half of 2018 will be this kind of technology in Teams. It'll be called Teams on Air. As well as things for PowerPoint loading files. Big one that I'm really looking forward to as well is the interoperability with Surface Hubs and Skype room systems. So right now, it's one of the things that if you're looking at deploying Teams and you only have, and you've got Surface Hubs, well, you can't invite those Surface Hubs to a meeting in Teams. It's just not an option at the moment. Doesn't matter, you can try all different ways, just won't work. So yeah, really looking forward to that changing. And also from a calling roadmap. So right now in Australia, we don't have the ability to call out of Skype for Business Online directly without a hybrid implementation or some on-premises hardware called a Cloud Connector Edition. Whereas when that functionality is launched, I can't tell you when, but the rumor is early-ish 2018, then yeah, that functionality will also come to Teams as well. So one of the things that we did actually see previewed at Ignite was actually that calling capability within Teams. So it still had this very similar Skype look and feel, dial pad, answer, call buttons, all those kind of things. And as you can see there from that roadmap, that some of these things will be towards the end of the calendar year. Again, they might come sooner, but I think that what you're seeing from a number of these slides is that by mid-2018, Teams will be almost feature parity with Skype for Business Online, with some bits coming later. And then obviously what will happen is Teams will overtake that in terms of functionality, as it already has quite a lot more than Skype for Business does. While they haven't given a drop-dead date for when Skype for Business Online will cease to exist, as you can see from this roadmap, it will most likely be towards the end of 2019. Skype for Business Online will not really be attracting any more new features. Don't take that as gospel, because I'm sure they will preserve people's investment, but they have kind of said that over about 2 years is when we'll see Skype for Business Online kind of merge into Teams. I am actually doing a webinar in 2 weeks from this exact moment with a Link Microsoft Certified Master, Damien Margaritis, and we'll be talking about specifically Skype and Teams. So we'll be covering off all that call and meeting interoperability and diving into more details for that. So yeah, feel free to register for that one. Handing over to Darrell for Yammer.
Is he going to be called a Teams Master later? I mean...
That's a good question, because I'm a Teams MVP, but still an Office 365 MVP. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, how about that? All right, Yammer Lammer Ding Dong. We have a few announcements for Yammer, of course, but we need to show how active they have been over the year. And you know, it's been a story for a year or two now that there's been some things they've had to get in order before they can start rocking and rolling with new stuff. So this has been a good thing for, oh, I hope Loryan's still there. No, he is still there. That's good. Otherwise, I'd have to take over as presenter and advance the slides. Let's move on to the next slide of what they have been.
Sorry, I was momentarily distracted.
No problem. Must have been the Yammer Lammer Ding Dong comment. The capability of being able to edit posts has been a welcome thing over the year. Adding that desktop app, which, you know, people might think, what's the big deal there? Well, it means that Yammer is open all the time and it integrates with the operating system's notifications, so you can get involved in those conversations. Typing indicators, seeing things going on. So we've seen some of these features that we are welcome and used to in other social platforms. We also see groups integration, and file pickers there too. Stream integration, where we can see those clips that we're creating and uploading into Microsoft Stream there, and can be played from a Yammer conversation. So what are they planning ahead of now? Let's go on to the next slide. Also, we see that theme there of data residency. So it is important to know that that Yammer up until now has been a US-based service, and it's a welcome thing to see that Yammer is going to be homed into certain geolocations, so that those that find data residency, it's super important that they can be freed up to use Yammer as well. So I guess that really lines it up for some other additional news going on there. Next slide. And that, some of these slides that are coming through here have got a few advancements as we click through. So I'll just nod to get you to tap in advance to that next animation there, Loryan. So we have deeper integration now with SharePoint. Up until now, we'd seen like a kind of a half kind of web part, some embedding capabilities. What's the idea with this new web part? The idea is that you can embed it into your conversations, into your communication sites, into your team sites, and Yammer becomes your conversation engine, replacing what used to be the SharePoint social. We have the rich text on this advancement there, so it's not just about trying to make use of bullet points and the like. You can actually add them there yourself, add links and bolding various things. We have a better mobile experience, and you'll see it almost feels like that group experience there too, where you can see your pinned documents that you have pinned within a Yammer group are available there, and you can access your group files. Now, there is a greater focus too on enabling or improving that community management within Yammer. What we're seeing here is quite in the true Yammer fashion, that you're being open with your group insights. How is a group being used? And these are figures that are not just visible to group admins, they're available to the group, rather than it just being a report that's hidden in the background for admins. We can manage the topics. So there is sometimes a need to consolidate topics and bring those sort of conversations together. Moving posts between groups, these sorts of things are quite important for helping to generate that conversation and to manage the community to help move that along. We have very familiar looking terms there that we've seen arrive in Exchange first off about a year or two back into SharePoint, and now we're seeing all that hard work that Yammer's been doing in the background. They can now start to offer more capabilities around security and compliance. Your lockbox capabilities, they're getting all prepped up for GDPR compliance, and also managing the naming conventions of groups too. Slide. So onto, I guess this is one of the slides really that gives you a clue as to what's coming. From an organization perspective, they're going to have live video broadcasting, particularly leveraging the likes of a town hall and video. So that's what you see on screen there. Scheduled posts, being able to clue up people, or rather making announcements at certain times. So that sort of thing goes out, and official updates. I'll just nod there and go further along. Creating events as well. So these are all kind of lined up with creating certain types of content that's going to be launched, created, broadcast to people. From a community perspective, what we see here is best answers. So again, it's looking at making use of Yammer as a way of facilitating that conversation and making content and answers quick and easy to find. We have, I think this almost salutes to that session we did, Loryan, where we had Office 365 etiquette. Don't leave a bro hanging or a sister hanging with an answer or question that they've posted up there. It's showing you your open questions so that people can come in and say, oh, look, there is something that I can answer, and I'll be a good community person and answer that content. And next bit. All right, yeah, so bringing in the SharePoint news, like I said, there is a big theme there of news pages. And might I just say, just as a side comment here, I'm encouraging people to, if they're going to write something as a story in long form, don't do it as a long email, don't do it as a long Yammer post or a long team post. Maybe you want to use some pictures, drop in some videos, write a news page, and then reference it from those various different communication platforms. Next. And so from a initiative perspective, I don't quite get the word they've used there, but ones that I'll pick out there, a tab in Teams. So that the Yammer has its own tab in Teams. It has been around for a little while, but they've made it official and brought it in as part of a Microsoft initiative. And being able to archive groups as well. So for those groups that are not in use, that you're able to start winding those sorts of things up. And we see that as a trend across all the different team sites, teams, groups, etc. Next slide. And I think this one is just our roundup there, which I'll leave you to read that in your own time, but that's a good one to sum up all the different things that are planned for Yammer and their vision across the roadmap ahead.
So over to reporting, which historically would not be something that's particularly exciting. But if you think about how broad Office 365 is and how you really want to drive success in your organization, reporting is actually quite key because you really need to see how well people are using it. Obviously, there's already Office 365 reports already available in the admin center, but the issue has been that users haven't been able to get to this. So I'll cover that off shortly. But one of the things we are going to see is if you have deployed the Office 365 adoption content pack for Power BI, it's being renamed to Office 365 Usage Analytics. Much simpler, much less words to use. So that's going to be made available in early 2018, and there's also going to be some additional reporting in there. So we'll also be able to see things like teams and other bits, and we'll cover that off shortly. There's the report reader role, which allows that change managers and people who are charged with the success of Office 365 in the organization to see those reports without actually having to have an admin role. So that's been one of the challenges at the moment, is you need to be a global admin in order to get to these reports in the first place. So this report reader role, as by the name implies, it's a read-only role, and it will only give you access to the reports itself. So I think that's a huge positive step forward there. One thing you can do is there will be service health email notifications. So right now we do have the Office 365 admin mobile app, which can actually send you push notifications for service degradations. But if, for example, you need those as emails to be recorded into your service management system, or you want them for more of a journal purpose, this is quite an advantage there to be able to have that. You can also potentially send them to a distribution group to turn into a page alert with things like Flow and Power Apps, whatever you want to do with it. So yeah, there's an email address there you can actually sign up for as well. Also, there's the Message Center update. So that is actually going to be carved up a little bit differently. So we're actually going to be seeing things like major updates. So for example, when a component of Office 365 goes into preview, so it's a new feature, or it moves from preview to general availability, we'll actually see that actually showing up there as a major update. It'll also send you an email as well, so you don't have to go into the Office 365 Message Center.
We'll current example of that, Loryan, is the to-do. The to-do thing is going from preview to GA, and that was a tile to let people know.
Yes, true. And an email that was sent out as well. So I rushed out and installed it because I was so excited to use to-do. So there'll also be there is currently a weekly message center roll up, so that's being tweaked as well as this new digest notification that's being out there, sent out there. So some good improvements coming along there. One of the things that has been an issue from a Office 365 admin perspective is you're generally an admin of a workload or of the entire service. So what we'll actually have now with a feature within Azure Active Directory called administrative units is to have scoped admin. So you can be an admin of this area, as in departmental area. So within these administrative units that are assigned within Azure Active Directory, it means that Darrell can look after our New Zealand administrative area, and I can look after our Australian administrative area, so that we don't play with each other's settings and those kind of things. As Darrell mentioned before, the SharePoint Admin Center is getting an update. Now, one of the things that if you've been looking at the admin of Office 365 for a while, is it's generally admin in one area, reporting in another. So we're actually seeing these brought together where admin and reporting will be the same, so you can see the usage of these things. That's separate from the report reader role. They'll just see the reporting only. But what it means is that you can actually go in and see the insights and perform the setting changes as you need based on those. As you can see there, thank you for Darrell's pointer, his laser pointer. There is actually a link where you can actually sign up for the admin preview of that as well. Microsoft Teams and Skype Admin Center are coming together as the products are coming together, and there'll also be reporting. So right now we don't really have any reporting on Teams usage. We do for Skype, and the Teams administrative experience is buried under services and add-ins. Add-ins, sounded very Kiwi there. Add-ins. So it's buried under there. So that will actually be moving to its own Skype and Teams admin center where the two will be intertwined with, as you can see there, the reporting analytics, pretty graphs, and those kind of things. And there'll also be more capabilities and controls. So other apps and services, because there are other apps and services.
Yes, there are. Yeah, and you know, we've got that early, like, coming to the end of our webinar warning with that barking dog of mine. A neighbor. Anyway, Office 2019, everything's 2019, but it's all released in 2018. Well, mostly. Office 2019 is due to come out late 2018. One thing that of note there is that it won't have OneNote in it. You'll be dependent on using OneNote as the Windows 10 application and across the various platforms that you use in mobile fashion. But yeah, Office 2019, do expect to see that coming, and as the pattern usually follows, you'll still have an Exchange server, a SharePoint server, and Skype for Business server. Now, of course, the different server platforms are making it easier and easier for you to tackle that hybrid scenario, and so you're putting the bulk of that workload and the bulk of your content into online. And look, we've seen throughout this webinar here that with data residency, geolocation, making that possible, then it's certainly a more attractive option for those who want to keep custom stuff on-prem, on SharePoint servers and Skype and Exchange, but have the bulk of that vanilla stuff in the cloud. So yeah, expect to see those coming out. Slide.
And I think, as we can also expect around that period of time, we'll start seeing this is the last ever release of these server versions. We might see that.
Blog posts.
We might not see that. We'll see how we go. But I'm sure they'll be there, and they might actually be the last server versions. We don't know. So one of the things that was demonstrated was this Microsoft 365 powered device. So this is not to be confused with just Office 365. This was actually using a combination of Azure Active Directory, Intune, and components of Office 365, as well as Windows 10. So what we saw was something called Windows Autopilot, which in combination with Exchange Online and Office 365 and also OneDrive, effectively allows you to recover your machine in a matter of minutes. So if anyone has seen a Chromebook demonstration, this is effectively the same thing, but with rich, thick applications and with Office 365 data. Now, the reality is we've actually been able to do this for quite some time. In that if you already have everything in the cloud, you can actually just go buy a Windows 10 device off the shelf, sign into it with your Office 365 credentials, and everything will kind of come down. But it hasn't been as smooth. It has brought things down from Azure Active Directory, but it hasn't brought Office 365 things down with it. So this will be the joining of the two. So effectively, I can hand a user a device, or they can be remote. And they can just sign into their device, and it will actually bring down their files using that Windows 10 feature that we haven't really talked too much about, but was alluded to earlier, which is the files on demand, which means our files are there instantly, even though they're actually only there as we need them. And also our mail will be there instantly as well. So yeah, it's quite great to see this. So yeah, so some more features there. Now, we haven't covered really anything around the rest of Windows 10 or Azure or EMS or any of those kind of things. They do kind of bubble around, but yeah, this has been focused on Office 365. So with that, we'd like to say thank you. We've kind of finished ahead of time. We do actually have a Q&A option there. If anybody wants to ask some more questions, there's been a couple there. Otherwise, there are our contact details. So feel free just in case you didn't see enough mentions of my name there, repeated. They're all unified there. Also, you can follow us on Regarding 365, where we have these amazing hats. So, which is a team of Darrell and myself, as well as a number of other MVPs and also non-MVPs who share their experiences, insights, and knowledge around Office 365.
Now, we did have one question there. I guess I could expand on it. Was wait, what? No OneNote in Office 2019? Correct. They have the OneNote team for a year or so have been putting a lot more development into bringing up the Windows 10 application and the mobile apps to parity with the current Office 2016 version. You get used to seeing that pattern of the ribbon being much thinner. I don't know what you would call it, a ribbonette, but it still feels the same. And so there'll be more capabilities there as time goes on. So they, in my mind, they have a year to bring in a few other things that I love about OneNote, but I have already started using that mostly on the desktop. And so yeah, so not in 2019. Don't think we see any other questions in the Q&A unless some people are madly tapping away and backspacing is the way it goes.
Let's just sit here awkwardly for a few moments.
Well, we could.
It's kind of like when we were presenting at Ignite, and as you're kind of starting, but it's not actually your start time. We just look at the audience.
Yeah.
So, except it's your video, Darrell. So let's just switch. I'll look for a while at the audience.
Okay. No, the thing about doing that, and this is just a general experience of being at Ignite. I really enjoyed having those community theatre sessions. They felt a lot like TED Talks. They were punchy. There was a few lessons to learn, and people could wander in and just experience it as they needed to. But they were really engaging, weren't they? I mean, like you said, we could just walk down and have a chat with people as we were waiting for people to round up and get in there. So good to hear that they're going to repeat that format again.
Yeah, absolutely. Ignite was, look, we've done our best to kind of capitalize on the amount of content that was produced there. There was about, I think it was something like about 1,400 sessions in total, of which about 400 alone were around Office 365. In fact, if you did a search on the term Teams, there was about 40 sessions on Teams alone. So quite a lot of content to get through, quite a lot of videos. We hope that we have done a fantastic job of relaying some of these announcements and informations in this aggregated presentation. As I said, we will make both this recording as well as the presentation available online shortly.
We've had a couple more questions come in, Loryan. So just the refreshing rate, I guess, of Skype Q&A. But one of them there is, please recap on the Yammer tab within Teams. What is that? What is that about? So you go ahead.
There was a Yammer tab in Teams made by a third-party developer back at the start of the year. So that's by no means official. So what will actually happen is that Yammer will actually create their own tab available, so you can actually have both communication modalities working between each other. What we're seeing is obviously the Skype integration coming into Yammer, and now we're seeing that better, convergence between Yammer and SharePoint and groups and all these other things. One of the things you can do currently with Yammer in Teams is you can actually create a Yammer connector. I think that's going to be done from the Office 365 group, though, Darrell. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's done within the group, and the idea being that you can target what kind of posts you're interested in, and they'll bring it into the conversation experience. So yeah, that's useful. I think it's more useful when you're using it with an external group and you're wanting to bring in like customer interactions.
There's a good session that was delivered towards the end of Ignite by a couple of MVPs, Melanie Hohert, Simon Denton. I can't remember the name of it, but it was, I think, something about Yammer and Teams where community meets Velocity.
Meets, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and it was about actually combining Yammer and Teams together and where they work well together and scenarios. And the presenters were actually coming from large organizations that were, over 10,000 people in size, and they were really talking about the power of both tools together.
Yeah, now we still have more questions there. This is awesome. So
We do.
people have been madly tapping as we expected. We have one there. Leonie was interested in the timeline for the Yammer features that are coming. We basically have the info that you have now. It was on the slides. There's yeah, I mean, actually, they didn't break it down like they did with the SharePoint one or the Teams one and say this and this quarter and that quarter, but they're certainly freed up to start making sure those things arrive. So sorry that we don't have any actual timelines. What else have we got here? We've got Jennifer who wanted to know or was interested to see Microsoft's cash splash for LinkedIn and where that's headed, the various different developments around LinkedIn. Any thoughts around that, Loryan?
Yeah, so we already saw a little bit of that, interestingly, leading up to Ignite, where if you use the LinkedIn mobile app on iOS or Android, it actually detected if you were going to Ignite and allowed you to then actually had a tab within the app. So you could click on Ignite and you could see conversations about Ignite. You could see people who are registered to come to Ignite. I actually had a session one-on-one with some of the LinkedIn folk about the insights into future app developments. But I guess probably bringing it back to the nature of the question, we will see that integration in Office 365. Also, probably more so within Dynamics CRM is probably where we'll see a lot of it. But within Office 365, as Darrell mentioned before, we've got the Bing for Business where I can do a search. I expect that we'll also see it in general contact cards and Delve as well. So if I have a federated contact in Skype or Teams and I hover over them, it will then be able to give me information from LinkedIn, whatever's publicly available or whatever I've got access to from a connection respect. So it's not going to then say, hey, every Office 365 customer can see everything inside of LinkedIn. It'll be, if I'm connected to you, then I will be able to see whatever I can see going into LinkedIn, but I can see it inside of Office 365 apps.
Mm. Thanks for that, Loryan. I know that, yeah, that's going to be an interesting area of development. And, yeah, we've already seen things like lynda.com being renamed as LinkedIn Learning. That's
right.
how I've
Yes.
observed it, right? Yeah, so it's, oh, there we go. Here's another question. Hey, just joined the session, so potentially this person might be watching delayed coverage. Oh yeah, some feedback about the meeting invite, and I think Queensland versus what is it? They don't have daylight savings.
Yeah, daylight savings. Yeah, well, none of us should really have it, but that's a John Oliver segment. Yeah, so apologies to the person who just joined from Queensland. We will be making this online. Available online, both the recording and the presentation later this afternoon. And I will take that learning on for future webinars to explain if there is a time zone difference and be putting in Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is a little bit ridiculous because Queensland is Eastern.
But potentially we'll be delivering it via Teams on Air or something like that. So good to know that we still have that delayed coverage capability.
It's not the only silly thing our government does.
Yeah. Well, we it was a farmers thing too here over in New Zealand, where some farmers in certain collections of communities said we're not going to do daylight savings, and yeah. Well, I work with Adopt and Embrace. They're based in Queensland, so now we're 3 hours apart. I start my lunch when they're just getting to work. That's how it happens. We don't seem to have any other questions that have appeared. It's nice that you've forced me to have a refresher on Skype broadcast and soon to be Teams on Air, Loryan, but I'm impressed. The last time I looked at it, it was a bit limited, but I can see it's working quite well.
Yeah, a lot of the broadcasts we've been doing have been to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Periscope, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, whereas I use the tools that are available to us as part of Office 365. And
are you digging at me, mate?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks everyone for coming along. Again, that's where you can find us on Twitter, and we are at regarding365.com, and our various places that we work. Loryan works for himself, so that's cool, and I'm working at
Great boss.
adoptandembrace.com, and now here in New Zealand with our own office. So thanks again, and we'll be online around.
Yeah.
Bye for
Thanks,
now.
everyone.